Hello there, Badgers. My Angry Pagan here. I know, been a while. Hopefully, I've got my new PC, getting a new monitor this month, so I should be up and running with regular videos. I just feel really weird about doing videos via my phone. Um, and it kind of taxes my phone. Um, so a lot's happened. A lot has happened. So first, we'll go over the obvious. What's happened recently. Trump has raided Venezuela and kidnapped Nicolas Maduro. Now, Nicolas Maduro was a fucking evil piece of shit. He was a dictator that deserved to be taken down. But surely this is not right. This is not the right way to go about it. um, the way I understand it, the Trump administration like is in the law with this because of what Bush did, Bush Jr. putting in the law, so they can go in and take out terrorists. That's how they've done it. They've accused Maduro of being a terrorist, which meant that they didn't have to go to Congress because they're not going on an all-out war against Venezuela, apparently. And again, this is just fucking disturbing. It's another sign that last year the post Cold War global consensus, global order, was done. It's completely done. It's fuck. There's no bringing it back now. My brain was looking at this. How does this look in the future? Now I've just watched the TLDR video on a federalized EU and the increased likelihood of a federalized Europe. And a question comes to mind: Are we beyond? Are we at a point now where we are actually beyond nation state level, but our people refuse to go past that level? Like we are, we started to go to a point where you the picture I have in my head, right, is a bit like, I don't know if you guys ever played a game called Spore. Now, in this game, and it's a game like made for people like me, who are obsessed with evolution, and not just biological but social and technological evolution as well. Spore is actually a fucking good game. But what I'm talking about here is when you get to the civilizational level, a civilizational era, you start unifying parts of the world. Now, this is either through cultural, religious, economic, religious, or military means. But we get to a point where you get past individual nations and they become unions of nations, like the US, which becomes itself a nation made up of many different nations, many different states. Same thing happened with Germany. And here in the UK, although Scotland, Alba and Cymru and Ayr as well probably want to leave. it looked like to me we were heading in that direction, and then in the last 5-8 years, it's all started to disseminate again. We all started to try and diversify again. Now, I said before, those people who watch videos on my channel should know by now that I've said before that, look, one of the big drivers of evolution is diversification. And so my mind is at one point going, are we at a point where we are beyond nation states, but are in that grey area where people just don't want to do that? They want to stay as nation states. Or are we at a point where we were heading towards that, but material conditions have ended up as such where the world is now heading towards is in multipolarity? I'm more on the second one, but if the EU does federalize and say China gets more powerful and takes over other East Asian nation states and they unify, what happens then? Listen, my mind is, I structure everything comes under some level of evolution, and I look at this and my mind starts extrapolating. It starts analysing and extrapolating upon what I'm seeing and what might happen and what has happened, what is happening, and what may happen next. And this, this is born through, my obsession with paleontology. Looking at how life looked. Then there's the zoology part of me, which looks at how life is now. And then there's the speculative zoologist in me that tries to see how things may look going forward. It's the same here. It was societal or civilizational evolution. You look at this. We over many thousands of years, the trend seems to be that we have different peoples, then unify, then something happens, whether that's natural disasters or wars or disease or whatnot. Then they diversify again, and then over time they start to unify, and then again something happens, and they start to. Is that the natural cycle, or is that just in, or is that just the point that we're at, or is so? I then bring in the part of me that knows that we are one of, if not the only species that we know of, that is conscious of and is consciously able to affect our own evolution. Now, I'm not just talking about biological, again, social and technological. Given the level we're at when it comes to this level of knowledge, where do we go next? That's my question. A lot of people are going, oh, it's just going to get... Yeah, you look throughout life history, you get boom periods and you get decline periods. And I've stated this before in other videos. I don't mean to sound cold, but I just recognize this as one of the few absolutes that I can, or at least close to absolutes that I could pin my finger on, is that there is a cycle of boom and bust, essentially. What we see in the financial markets is what we've seen throughout biological evolution throughout hundreds of millions of years. So, are we instead heading towards Are we heading into a bad period where diversification is going to happen to then end up after we, and we either go extinct or different societies die out. Civilizations don't last forever. Look at the Roman Empire. Look at the Egyptians. But these people don't entirely disappear either. Like, some level of them continues on. I'm trying to think of Basque people as well. I was thinking of. We don't know where their language comes from. Like, we can match up English and Norwegian and German with Italian and Spanish and French because they all come from the Proto-Indo-European language, right? And we this is why I love etymology, the evolution of language. But again, we're at an intellectual level, we're at an intelligence level of where do we go next? Now, you got the AI stuff, grant you, but where does humanity go next? Do we drive ourselves into extinction, or do we push beyond the next boundary? I would like to see us try and push beyond the next boundary. I would like to see less mining on Earth because we're mining asteroids in space, which would mean a whole level of upheaval for the global economy. But look what's happening now. I'm not going to say I predict, but I can see quite a lot of economic disruption coming. Economic disruption and social disruption. Part of this is going to come through Trump. Part of this is going to come through Nigel Farage here, and the types like him in Europe. More violence happening in Africa and the West Asia. I'm not entirely sure what's going on in Central Asia, but that seems to be a bit heating up. I do wonder where the next major catastrophe is coming from that will send us in that will push us out of this stagnant period, because the truth is we have been in a bit of a stagnant period. Where do we go next? Like, we've been, societally speaking, we've been getting more and more comfortable, like, and that's largely due to technological advances. But they can only take us so far, and Trump is proving that. Trump, Putin, and Xi are proving that. So, how does humanity get past this? Now, I get many different ideas chucked at me, but I did want to read a quote from one of my favorite books by Terry Pratchett, and it's been very informative to who I am politically and philosophically speaking. Now, this book is called Night Watch, and it gets pretty political, in my opinion. If you want a Terry Pratchett book that's pretty damn political, there are several, but this is definitely one of them, the book Night Watch. So, I'll read this out, and I'll give you some more thoughts, but let me know what you think. So, there were the plotters, there was no doubt about... the context to this is that basically the main character Samuel Vimes has gone back in time and it's gone to a very unstable period in the city he is commander of the police force for, essentially. He goes back in time to the same city, but at a time where it's really sort of a revolutionary era sort of thing, a time of change. So a really unstable time in Ankh-Morpork's history. So here we go. There were the plotters. There was no doubt about it. Some had been ordinary people who had had enough. Some were young people with no money who objected to the fact that the world was run by old people who were rich. Some were in it to get girls. And some had been idiots, as mad as swing, with a view of the world just as rigid and unreal, who were on the side of what they called the people. Vimes had spent his life on the streets and had met decent men and fools and people who'd steal a penny from a blind beggar and people who performed silent miracles or desperate crimes every day behind the grubby windows of little houses, but he'd never met the people. People on the side of the people always ended up disappointed in any case. They found that the people tended not to be grateful or appreciative or forward-thinking or obedient. The people tended to be small-minded and conservative and not very clever and were even distrustful of cleverness. And so the children of the revolution were faced with the age-old problem. It wasn't that you had the wrong kind of government, which was obvious, but that you had the wrong kind of people. As soon as you saw people as things to be measured, they didn't measure up. What would run through the streets soon enough wouldn't be a revolution or a riot. It would be people who were frightened and panicking. It was what happened when the machinery of city life faltered, the wheels stopped turning, and all the little rules broke down. And when that happened, humans were worse than sheep. Sheep just ran. They didn't try to bite the sheep next to them. And that quote there is actually a big part of the reason why I don't trust communism. Because it relies on an assumption that everyone else is going to think like you, or you have to force people to think like you. Don't like that. I don't like that. It's very monotheistic. I don't like it in the slightest. And it demonstrates that, especially when you get to large population sizes, people aren't simple. So all these little different ideologies, fascism, Nazism, socialism. I mean, yes, I'm a socialist, but socialism, communism, all the libertarianism, all the different ones, right? Which in of itself proves my point about diversification, by the way. All of them can only box up a certain number of people and only in certain different ways. Because you get different fascists who will argue with each other. Authoritarians will argue with other authoritarians because they are the ones that want all the power. This whole this whole idea of a wonderful society where there is no war, there is no violence, there's nothing. It's unrealistic. And again, that might sound cold, but this is the truth. It's unrealistic. History of life on Earth proves that. What we can do is try to make things less dangerous. Try to keep things as safe as possible. But with the knowledge that we can never achieve 100% safety without destroying what made us, the planet. Ecosystems. Look, Britain is a perfect example of why you don't try to do that. It's why you don't try to homogenize everyone and everything. and make everything safe. It's an unrealistic, it's an unrealistic goal to try and achieve, and I think it's a dangerous goal to try and achieve. But coming back to the global situation, because of that, we get people with ideologies. Well, because of what I just said, you get people with ideologies who will just, I like in an argument yesterday. I saw Phil having an argument with someone in his chat, right? And they were constantly going, "Oh, Starmer, he's just being weak. He's just a bootlegger." Like, could you imagine the bootlicking? My mum said this. Could you imagine the bootlicking from fucking Farage or Rishi Sunak? No, this isn't bootlicking. This is Starmer playing it smart. But because people are so rooted into their biases and ideologies, they cannot see beyond those boxes. The people are putting themselves into the boxes. It's not that the boxes don't exist, because they do exist, but they're not entirely closed, and they do intercede with one another. That's why, like, on the left, you get many different types of people. On the right, you get many different types of people. In the centre, you get many different types of people. But the reason why they're able to be put in these broad boxes is because they have some traits that are dominant in their personalities, which lends them to, be around these people that are the same as them or similar to them in these aspects. But we can't get to a point where we're better without doing the wrong things first, quite often. And in fact, it's the trial and error process may be painful, but it's proven. We need to, yes, not bow down to the US, but at the same time, we can't do it in a way, the situation that the UK especially is in, we can't do it in a way where we go, fuck you, Trump. We can, us little people, but Starmer can't do that. Are you kidding? Not without firm footing first. It's like a man, like, going to the sea, shouting at the sea, saying it's going to fall, like, and then a tidal wave kind of washes them away. It's ridiculous. Like, the damage that Trump could do to this country, considering the people who are already fucking feeling the pain right now as it is, do you really think it would do us any good for us to tell Trump to go fuck himself? It would make us feel better in the short term. Our morals would be kept to. Our principles would be kept to. But people will hurt because of it. People hurt more than they would have done if Starmer hadn't, tried to gently approach when it came to Trump. Now, when it comes to Greenland, which is ruled by Denmark, that's a whole different kettle of fish, I have to admit. Like, Starmer will have to come down one side or the other on that one. And it looks like he will side with Denmark on this. Don't hold me to that, but it looks like Starmer will go with Denmark over the US. Side with EU over the US. And it would just make sense to do so. Again, going back to this ideology, this problem with ideology, like, I keep hearing people saying, "Oh, we just need to flat out cut ties with the US." Same problem. It's the exact same problem. We tell the US to go fuck off, which is not going to have anything to do with you. That will cause immediate damage to our economy, which will be felt by us down here, and we will then complain a whole lot more, which will give more, it gives more airspace to people who use grievance politics, like Nigel Farage. I'm no big fan of Starmer, but I do not envy the position he is in. He has been handed not just a shit sandwich, but a shit sandwich layered on top with a whole load of bitumen to make it all stick in place, and he's barely able to do anything. But all he can taste is that shit. Awful image, I know, but that's where he's stuck. And he was forced that. It's partly by himself or his own advisors. But when it comes to geopolitical stuff, that's not been forced on him by himself. That isn't his mistakes. He's been doing as good as he can do, given the position that Britain is in, considering that we did Brexit. And the Tories have been hostile with the EU ever since. Our closest trading partners. It's ridiculous. And people are now expecting Starmer, like they're getting really shitty with Starmer because he's not doing everything they want. It's like, you be Prime Minister. Instead of fucking bitching and complaining at him, why don't you try and be Prime Minister? Again, I don't approve of quite a lot of what Starmer's done. I approve of some things. I approve of a fair amount that I don't approve of a lot of things. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to condemn him on the geopolitical front. He's actually done a good job on that, given the position he was handed. Now, this is what, like, coming to the end of this, with everything that's going on, can my viewers see that digging down deeper into ideology and bias won't help? We have to remain objective as objective as possible. This is the scientist in me talking. Not saying to get rid of all your biases, but as much as possible, can we please be a bit more objective about these situations? I look around at the world, I see where it's heading, and it could be heading in several different directions, as I noted earlier. But we can affect it. We can affect that. The choices that we all make. If we refuse to adapt and instead double down, what can we say when we lose? Again, we need to start doing things differently to combat what's coming and what's happening. I understand why emotions are so high, but that's exactly why it's important for us to be as objective as we can. Like, the reason why I get so emotive over the things that I'm passionate about is because, as far as I'm concerned, the things I'm most passionate about are proven facts. And it's the fact that people are trying to go against these proven facts, like, say, evolution. Even I know technically it's a theory, but evolution, it's just, like, it is a fact. It is happening. It has happened, and it will continue to happen. And me being so focused on evolution means that I am looking at our situation and going, what can we do? Being this one of, if not the only species that is conscious of and consciously able to affect its own evolution, where do we go next? It comes back to that question. Considering the intelligence level, the intellectual level that, as a whole, we are at now, the knowledge level we are at now, where do we go next? It's not. I do deny any fatalist interpretation of this, or which is all going to be wiped out. No, I don't see that. We're too widespread. I mean, the dinosaurs didn't die out. Look at the birds. Tell me a cassowary isn't a fucking dinosaur. And if cassowaries are dinosaurs, then so are every single other birds. Just in the same way that we, apes, great apes, are monkeys. We are. You cannot evolve out of a clade. But now we are at a level we are consciously able to affect our own evolution, where do we go next? And it can't, my brain got chucked onto this again because of the TLDR video I was watching about the possible federalization of the EU, becoming its own bigger union of countries under one name, rather than the many separate countries that contribute to the EU. The EU being the one with the most power rather than the individual states. Are we heading? Is it indeed heading in that direction? And if that's the case, will that happen elsewhere? And what happens to the UK? I know Starmer would eventually like to rejoin the EU, but he recognises how difficult that is right now. I recognise how difficult that is. I'd love for us to rejoin the EU right fucking now, but it's not going to happen. Customs union we could do, and we should definitely be getting around to doing. But are we, again, I'll come back to the other question, are we beyond nation state? Are we getting to a point where we can move beyond the level of just small nation states, individual nation states? Or are we going back to a point where we started to unify and now we're diversifying again? Which one do you think it is? Or do you think it's a mix of both? Like, we could be, like, some areas could be unifying, others diversifying. I'm at a point where I am on the latter side of things, that we were unifying, but we are diversifying, but we've stopped due to different material conditions, and now we're starting to diversify again. And what does that mean? Although I will say that I'm not completely beyond that last point I made about it could be in a bit of both. Yeah, let me know what do you guys think. I know it's been a bit of a ramble. It's been a while since I've done a video, and for those who that celebrate the holidays, God Nyola, and happy Christian New Year to the lot of you. I've had a bit of a weird Yola myself, but I'm alright. I'm pretty good. Starting to feel better, and got again new PC's just come in. Need to get the monitor for it. I've got keyboard and mouse and stuff, but it's just at the moment the laptop I'm using, camera on it is shit, and I don't feel. Again, my phone can't take taking over the load of doing videos. I was really annoyed at. There's a whole bunch of things I wanted to talk about, and there's going to be. I'm likely going to try and do more videos in the meantime on my phone, but I'm at a point where it does tax my phone to do these videos, so I still won't be doing properly regular videos until towards the end of this month, I think. Once I've got a new monitor, got a camera, proper camera up, proper setup, I can start doing regular videos again. And I need to do regular videos. My brain, I've been trying to be active, but a lot of the time I've just been getting my brain into different studies, different papers, watching series, taking it more slowly over the past couple of months, especially with this constant fucking hacking up. Hopefully that'll get that. I'm starting to feel better, so hopefully that's getting better. And again, hopefully I can get on to making more regular videos again. So again, I'm sorry for the rambleness of this, but my brain has had these thoughts running around in my head for the past few weeks, and then the video comes out today, and it kind of crystallized a few things for me, so I needed to get it down. Let me know what you guys think about all this. I suspect I'll get some disagreement, but again, I'm not being absolutist. Remember, I'm not an absolutist, so I wasn't I'm being tried to be an absolutist throughout this video. I've been tried to look at what may happen. I see either points of unification, or we're heading to a point where we're all going to split up again. The EU may split up, and it's all just back to bickering smaller nation states. I don't actually, I actually prefer the whole union. I prefer the unions of nations. I prefer that over individual nations. That doesn't mean I want to get rid of cultures, because you can have many. Look at Russia, for example. There are many different cultures inside Russia. So Russia's a good example of that, actually. Confederation of states that unified. It's called the Russian Federation. So yeah. Do you agree with me that we should try to go for, we should try to bring the world back to going towards unions and try to unify the world in that sense without eliminating everyone's cultures? Or are we heading towards a point where we're all going to split up, all the unions are going to split up, and it's all going to be bickering for the next couple of 100 years till we kill ourselves or something else happens? Or is it going to be a mix of both? 3 options I've got there. Where do you think how do you think things are going to go? And in the shorter term, what do you think is going to happen in the next 2 years? What do you think is going to happen by the end of 2027? Between now and the end of 2027, what do you think will have happened by this point in 2027, or even by the end of 2027? How do you think things will develop? How do you think we can try to help things develop? Where do you think we are not going to be able to have any power in making things develop? Let me know. Let me know what you guys think. I'm sorry that I've not been so active, but it's a bit of a mishmash for me at the moment. And once I've got my PC up and running, I should be more comfortable to start doing regular videos again, because I'm really getting annoyed with myself on this. So yeah. Freaks, love and blessings. I hope everyone had a good YOLO. And stay safe, Badgers.